So, should artists have restrictions in their work? This is mostly for the artists. For example, it may be fair to satire the president or an elected official, but is it acceptable to satire his family who are not directly involved in politics? Where do we draw the line? I think this came up recently with Barron Trump.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I have a lot of trouble with using the word restriction and art in the same sentence. Personally, we shouldn't be restricted by outside sources if you're an artist. However, I personally believe that if we are going to say that we're these people that are accepting and loving of others, we need to have the wherewithal to restrict ourselves and to figure out, I guess, what our goal is in the art form. If your goal in creating this piece of art is, I want to make myself feel better, or people who agree with me need healing and I want to give them a rallying cry, then you know what? Yeah, then it might be. But if your goal is to affect actionable change, making fun of our president in just a non-satirical way and just to make yourself, it doesn't do anything. I think it was Maggie was saying, it's like preaching to the choir. And all that does is make those people who don't agree with us, it just makes them not want to come to the art, and suddenly we've closed off this enormous entryway into the way we believe. And so where are they going to go? They're going to go to those news organizations that we don't necessarily believe. They're going to go to politicians who make fun of the art or say we don't have a right to express the art. So I guess that's my main thing. I mean, what's your goal as an artist is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I agree. And also, how do you regulate it? Who gets to decide how far is too far? And what makes that person qualified to do so? Do you know what I mean? Where would the line even be drawn if such a restriction were to come into play? I think it's the responsibility of the artist, like Ben said, to keep the message, the motive, keep the message clear. You have a job to make sure that your message is received, and you have to do that in a responsible way, or else it won't be received.
I think there are rules about being human. And I think that applies to everybody, whether you're an actor or creating art or not at all. And I think sometimes it's more about drawing the line where your tact and your respect are, and abiding by that line. In terms of, like, I'm thinking about Barron Trump, which I think most people sort of agree that ought to be generally off the table. And there are going to be a few people who are going to break the rules, whether there's a rule or not. But I think that in a lot of ways that just relates to our sense of humanity.
This is such an interesting moment in our culture around this idea of freedom of speech, right? And I think to some degree it's gotten distorted where sometimes people want freedom of speech without social consequences, which is not what's guaranteed, right? It's freedom of speech without government reprisal. No one's going to lock you up for saying something. It doesn't mean that I have to listen to your vitriol, or that I don't have the right to speak up against something that is truly awful, right? And call you out for being awful in public. So if we wish to stand up and talk to people who are saying truly awful things in public and call out that behavior and say, no, that's not socially acceptable, and we're not going to restrict you from speaking, but we're not going to give you a platform or our attention, then we can't turn around and use those same tactics.
I think a perfect example of this at this time right now and how it has necessitated that humility and kindness is actually Lady Gaga's halftime routine. If you look at, yes, the queen. So this is one of the most political artists of our time, right? This is the woman who is known for being outrageous and outspoken and wearing meat dresses and, being made the laughingstock because her choices are so broad, And was she limited by the National Football League? Maybe, who knows? But this woman found a way to make a perfectly constructive and awesome routine that most people thought totally was. Totally was. I mean, she empowered the LGBTQ community. She had a dance cast that was so diverse. She also gave a shout out to survivors of violence and also tuned into what is great about America. There was this whole list of people, you know, kind of alt-right people trolling and saying, well, Gaga, you got it right, and, you know, gave our country credit and sang the classics. Well, yeah, she opened up and said, this is America, and here's what's important to us. And most of them didn't even realize, but the people who needed to be mobilized and inspired totally were. And so I think that kind of sensitivity and thoughtfulness is more important in art now than ever. If you want to make really edgy, crazy, diggy satire that maybe goes too far and that's your thing, okay, but that's not going to really affect change, especially not now.
It's the same concept as nobody got anywhere by yelling at you. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, like seriously, how many of us are turned off by, you know, the people yelling on the corners of the street their message? It's like, cool, that's your message, that's what you want to do, but you're not going to convince me. And so, while I wouldn't say that there should be restrictions necessarily, I think there should be a sensitivity to that there is a nuance to delivering a message so that it is palpable to ears who might think differently.
Yeah, I think cleverness is kind of an issue too, because jumping off what Lindsey said, it's really easy to present someone with something that is, you are making your opinion of a current situation or a political figure or a public figure very obvious, but to present that argument in a way that avoids bringing up the direct thoughts about that figure and making people think about the themes or the ideas that are what we're truly fighting against or have a strong opinion on. You know, people like Donald Trump are these unique figures that are so ripe for parody or for satire, but when you strip away his meat suit and you look at what's underneath him and what he's truly standing for, when you find unique and creative ways to address those issues and to say, no, I'm not attacking the person, I'm attacking what they're standing for, which I can't stand for, you stand so much better of a chance of actually maybe not changing someone's mind, but making them think about it, and then laying the groundwork for the next generation to look back and go, oh, look, these are the things they were concerned with. Oh my gosh, what were my parents thinking supporting those people? They were insane.
And this brings us